Australia's innovation collapse. Hi everyone and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by ainslie.com.au, the home of Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, Ainslie Wealth and the Gold and Silver Standard. Be sure to have a look. Today, welcome back Alex. She's been looking at something that's close to her heart because she loves to talk about manufacturing and the state of where we are in this country with some of these things that really, when you start to think them through, don't make a lot of sense. But she's here to make them, well, hopefully make them make sense, probably not make the decisions make sense, but at least help us to understand what's going on. How are you going today, Alex?
I'm going well. How are you? Well, a bit rainy, but aside from that, all good.
Well, it's lovely up here in Brisbane, so it must just be a Sydney thing today.
Howdy da.
Look, interesting article you've written, and there was a line that really that summed it up beautifully, saying, at the moment, Australia's economy is a bit of a boat without a paddle. And you're referring there to this reliance we have on resource extraction over manufacturing. And it's a really interesting discussion because it's something that we have seen coming out of the US, that there's been this focus back on manufacturing, possibly something we've dropped the ball on a bit here. You gave a perfect example involving a copper smelter in Mount Isa. Talk us through why we're a boat without a paddle right now.
Well, I think it was we're a boat without a paddle or a mine without a smelter. So Australia likes to dig, we don't like to do. And if you, I guess, look at the history of Australia and what we did and how we had fantastic engineers, great innovations, we did it because we were doing, not because we were digging. Now, I have no doubt that in mining, we've had great innovation in equipment and what we do, but we don't make those. We don't do anything. We just tell someone in China or the US how to do it, and then we import it. So at the moment, Glencore, who owns the Mount Isa copper mine and the Mount Isa smelter and the Toowoomba copper refinery, yesterday they shut the copper mine, which I can understand because it wasn't producing, but there's still lots of copper producers in Australia or copper mines that are digging stuff out of the ground. They've basically said, now that we've shut the mine, the future of the copper smelter and refinery could be problematic without government help. So if you look around the world, governments help smelters because they want industry. They need copper. And, you know, one of the byproducts of copper, interestingly, is sulfuric acid, which we need for fertilizer. So we need this stuff, and governments around the world are subsidising it, which does not make it a competitive market. So if Australia needs it, and we do need it to be green, it's copper, and we do need it for fertilizer because it's an input, they need to put their hand in the pocket like the rest of the governments in the world and subsidise these smelters and actually decide what we're going to do, because the Albanese government keeps talking about future made in Australia. If we can't produce just the raw inputs, then what is going to be made in Australia?
I really want to come back to and dig a bit deeper on some of those interrelationships because that's really important. But first, I want to just divert slightly to talk about this economic complexity index, because it's probably part of the same conversation. Because you're highlighting that Australia was really it was terrible actually reading where we were now sitting. And the complexity here was an interesting angle I hadn't thought about before, because you were, or at least my interpretation of what you're saying is that when we just dig stuff out of the ground, that's not actually the complex part of this. The manufacturing and putting things together and making new innovative things is the complexity. And if we're dropping right down that list, that we're just losing all that, not just capability, but the capacity and capability, like all that intellectual stuff around it as well, that you need to know how to do things.
Yeah, so manufacturing is an ecosystem. There is no other way around it. Inputs and outputs. Copper ore goes into a smelter. Copper comes out and sulfuric acid comes out. Sulfuric acid is an input into fertilizer. Petrol refineries. Petrol goes in. Crude goes in. Petrol comes out. Gas comes out, which is what is needed to make plastic. Everything is an ecosystem, and we are collapsing the ecosystem in Australia, which means our complexity is dropping and we are unable to produce just basic inputs into manufacturing. All we do is dig it out of the ground and send it overseas for someone else to do. And our ecosystem is collapsing because of it, so much so that we're now behind Senegal, Botswana, and Bangladesh. Our R&D in this country is so poor compared to all other OECD countries that what this survey is, what this finding is that we will rank 137th out of 145th in 10 years. So, like, we're beating Nigeria at that point in time. Like, what are we doing?
Those countries, when you say those names, like Australia being in the same boat as them, doesn't make any logical sense. To, like, we're sitting here as a first world country. That's you're comparing us to third world countries that are really struggling in this environment. That they are actually becoming more complex than us in the construction of manufacturing. That's amazing to me.
And I mean, not only that, we talk about a green future and what's going on. If you just looking at the Mount Isa mine, when we were doing and innovating, we came up with some of the greenest refining and smelting technology in the world at the time because we had the best engineers working on this. So what we did back then, yes, copper, yes, steel, they're high energy, but we need them. So to reduce the energy is where you get the savings. Now you innovate and you create something that's greener, then you've become greener. Our country has greener technology. We've exported, we've done things for the world. But for some reason, this idea of a green world is just not burning coal. Well, unfortunately, someone's going to burn the coal. So, there's no way of getting around it. But if you can do it in a more energy reduced way, which is what we did, what we invented at Mount Isa, then are we not greener? Like, where has the concept that just not burning coal is what makes Australia greener?
Well, and it highlights that bigger issue that it's not that we don't have the talent here, because as you've highlighted, we've invented this stuff in the past. We can be an innovator in this space. We're sort of just neglecting that, and that's going to be hugely problematic. Digging into the reasoning behind that, because you talk about the distortions that are caused by foreign subsidies. So is that the primary reason you think that we are dropping here, is just because if everyone else is doing it a certain way, if they're all supporting their industry from a government level, if we just don't do that, by definition, we fall behind? Is that the real driver here?
I would say that is one of the drivers. I would say the other driver, which I harp on about all the time, is government red tape. And that is what Glencore has pointed out, that it's the business environment here that's become a problem, which is red tape, labour laws, and energy laws. All things the government have control over. That has become hostile to business in the last, progressively over the last 20 years. So even to operate here with government subsidies is going to be hard with the environment the government has left us in. So that's a two-faceted approach. But, countries like America, China, they've identified that they need to do certain things in order to be manufacturers, or for their security, or for, you need to do some things to be a secure country. Like, something happens in the rest of the world and we're not producing sulfuric acid here. Well, where's the fertilizer coming from? How are we going to feed everyone? We are not thinking in Australia. We believe that globalization is going to save Australia, while we continue to become a less green thinking country, in my mind, because we only think coal's going to save us.
Well,
and yet we're the biggest exporter of coal in the world.
And it's really interesting, that angle, because you're not being anti-green in that analysis. Like, there's just a massive contradiction and almost irony there, that you've got the government who were very much pushing that they want this green manufacturing, and then at the same time not seeing. How do they not know that you need copper to do renewable electrification of the grid, and all these other things around it? That, surely they know that, right?
I know they know that, but it's way easier just to dig it, don't do it, send it overseas and bring it back in at a higher price. But there is no security. There is no innovation. There is no manufacturing, and manufacturing ultimately is where innovation comes from. I mean, look at, there are other things, but the thought around so when you look at patents and the development of patents, the best patents you can always make is a process patent. A process patent protects an entire process, not just an output. An output's easy to manipulate ever so slightly to get around a patent, whereas a process patent is very difficult to do. If Australia doesn't know how to produce and doesn't know how to generate something slightly different, we will never generate the technology that we used to develop.
So to wrap this up, I want to come back to something that you said earlier that I alluded to that was really important, this interconnected world that we live in of inputs and outputs. I think if there was one point people left with, it's understanding your sulfuric acid example, right? Like that the fertilizer one, people go, well, obviously we need fertilizer in a country that's so heavily dependent on agriculture. That's related to the copper smelter. Not everyone will understand that, but that's not an isolated incident. It's how all manufacturing works, the interrelationship, the interconnectivity. So leave us with the positive here. What do we need to revitalise Australia's manufacturing here? What would it look like if we were to take some sort of immediate step in the right direction? What do you think that step would be?
Again, I've said this before, we need to decide what our minimum inputs are for security purposes, and we need to ensure we have that capability across Australia as a bare minimum. Now, copper, steel, aluminium, we do have all three of those things, but they're constantly under threat. They shouldn't be under threat. As soon as something is under threat, nobody chooses to invest. So the fact that, the steel smelter and the aluminium smelter stumble through and have to beg for constant government subsidies means they never invest, because it's not a protected market. So it's 5 years. Well, payback on a steel plant is probably 20 to 30 years. Yeah. So why would anyone invest in, if you're the owner of that company, why would you invest in it unless you had surety from the government? So if the government continues to think in 5-year and 4-year terms, which they seem to do, no one in this country will invest in the bare minimums. So the two things that need to happen is the inputs need to be determined, and they're not hard. Gas, steel, copper, plastic, petrol, there's things we should be doing here. And then timelines of 30 years need to be given, not not stupid lifelines that do not get a return.
Look, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Any topic that gets you fired up is always great for these insights. So we love that, Alex. It's something that is really it was new information for me on a few of those angles, because I don't even understand the interconnection of some of those manufacturing parts, and it really opened my eyes to it. So appreciate your work on that, and I know there'll be lots of discussion from people who go, oh, hang on a second, yeah, that is pretty important. So thank you for your work on it. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Always fun to get a bit excited about things.
We love it when you do. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll chat again soon.